colleagues, let me say what a great pleasure it is for us in the embassy and for me personally to welcome each and every one of you here. You have been here now for about 2 days, and after this half an hour sort of formal briefing is over, I'm really looking forward to meeting you at a more informal level and interacting with you and knowing you better at a more informal personal level. I must say that I have had the pleasure of welcoming NDC teams, as I was telling you, Marshal when we spoke some time ago, that I think in my last tenure when I was in Kazakhstan, even earlier when we were in Bangkok, and I always feel it a matter of great, not only pleasure and privilege, but also a matter of great pride to welcome the NDC team. So indeed it is today for us, for me, my colleagues at the embassy, some of who are here. So I think what I'm going to do is I will make a brief presentation on Sweden, and I'll make a brief presentation on relations between India and Sweden and the manner in which they have been growing and expanding. What I understand from Rajiv is that you have had quite extensive input as far as foreign policy issues are concerned, and as far as come. That's my wife.
Thank you.
So what I was saying is I'll make a brief presentation on Sweden. We have had quite a amount of input and talks and discussions on Sweden's defense policy, Sweden's foreign policy. So those are areas that I'm not going to touch. What Rajiv told me is that maybe the economic situation and the economic environment and the relations between India and Sweden, they have not been touched upon at any great length. But what I thought I will do today is, since these two major aspects have already been dealt with and treated in quite detail, I will go into and identify some of the defining features and characteristics of the Swedish polity, the Swedish persona, the Swedish psyche, so that you understand what is it that makes these people and what is it that makes this country what it truly is. So first I think maybe a few introductory facts. You are aware that this is a country which is about 450,000 square kilometers. It's about 1/6, 1/7 of India. India is about 3.2 million square kilometers. But of course, in terms of population, this is 9.3 million. India is 1.2 million. Big difference. In terms of its total GDP, it's about $450 billion. Per capita GDP is about $47,000, which makes it one of the richest countries in the world. But that notwithstanding, if you were to look at the international global rankings in a wide variety of areas, whether it is ICT, whether it is global competitiveness, as if it is, what is the most recognizable and the most valued brand name in the world. If you were to look at the figures that are brought out by Transparency International, for instance, in terms of lack of corruption, if you were to find out in terms of a variety of others, it is the greenest. Stockholm has been made the first green capital of Europe. So all these indicators, all these global rankings, Sweden comes nearly at the top. It is either first, second, third, fourth. And what is it that really makes it as such? I think not very many people would be aware that till just about 100 years ago, this country was a very, very impoverished country. Actually, you had about 1/3 of the population at that time. About 100 years ago, the population was about 3 million. and about 1/3 of the population migrated to the United States in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And there are many Swedens that have been created, whether it is on the East Coast or in Chicago, where there are huge Swedish populations. And why? Because there was poverty, there was impoverishment. And they went looking for a better way of life, better earnings, better incomes. And that is how they. So it is a country that has found its prosperity. It's of recent origin. It is not that it has always been prosperous. But that having been said, you will find some of the world's best brand names here, whether it is Ericsson, or it is ABB, or it is Atlas Copco, or it is IKEA, or it is Sandvik, or it is SK, and you could, it is AstraZeneca. The list is endless. And, when I was talking about global rankings, innovation is another area where this country finds itself right at the top. So I will identify just a few features as to what it is that has made Sweden what it is. I think the first aspect that I would like to underline is the level of trust between the people and the government. Now, of course, Sweden is a democracy. There are many other democracies in the world. But this level of trust, the social compact, as I would call it, between the ruler and the ruled, between the governed and those who are in positions of power and leadership, that there is a very strong level of trust. People on the street, we come from India, so people on the street, you will hardly ever find them discussing politics. Politics they leave to the politicians, because there is that feeling that what our politicians are doing is right for us. There is that level of trust, that level of confidence that the ordinary people have in the political class and the leadership. Of course, the policies are different and so on and so forth. Elections take place and they are quite actively fought elections. And unlike many other developed countries, Sweden is a country where the percentage of voter participation is very, very high. It's 80%. Unlike, let us say, in the United States, where you'll see 40%, 45% or so. So here there is, and that is also symbolized in the trust that people have. Maybe the second aspect that I would like to bring to your notice is and we are talking a little bit about the economy, is about the taxation structure of this country. This country has about the highest taxation levels in the world. The average taxation is about 51.1%. At the minimum salary level, the taxation levels are about 30%. And they go up to 50, they go up to 65, they can even go up more than that. So the taxation levels are very high. Yet if you were to go around and you were to ask the people are very happy to pay high taxes. I have gone around and I have sort of pointedly inquired from people, and I have asked them, the taxes are very high, and I think this is the sort of discussion that we have not only in India, but we have all over the world, that the taxes are very high. But people are realize that the taxes are high, but they're happy to pay those high taxes. And why is that? Because number one, they are confident that the money that is being sent in by them to the government exchequer and government coffers, that will ultimately be used for their benefit and their advantage. And they know that if they are paying these high taxes, they are getting good returns for them. They are getting good returns in terms of free education, free healthcare, good infrastructure, good social service benefits and support. So across the board, they are getting advantages. So the high taxation levels are not a cause of any complaint or anxiety or opposition. In fact, people quite welcome and support it. The third aspect maybe I could mention is the gender equality. I think this is one country where in terms of the balance between genders, in terms of the rights, this is a place which excels itself as compared to any other society or any other country. For instance, if you were to look at when did Sweden was the first country to provide a vote to its women folk. That was in 1921. If you were to look at the parliament, 47% of the parliamentarians are women. And in the last parliament, the percentage was a little above 50. And this is not as a result of any quotas. It is because women have a role to play, and they have been given that possibility by the, not only by the government, but by the society as such, to come forward and to claim their right. In the Stockholm City Council, which would be something similar to the Delhi government, state government, out of the 100 members, 51 are women. In the central cabinet, 12 out of the 24 ministers are women. Out of the 21 governors in the country, 11 are women. So I think women have a very strong role to play. And of course, the systems that the government has put in place in terms of bringing the women out of home and using them as productive forces of the economy, that has worked very well. If you were to look all around Europe, the average women working in any particular, an average in Europe is 56% of women who are working, who are in the labor force. In Sweden, it is 84%. So that is the difference between the average in Europe and the average, and what is the situation in Sweden. So I think they have been able to harness that 1/2 of the population of any country and bring it productively into. Of course, there are at times there are complaints also that maybe women don't get to reach the top echelons of decision making in corporate houses, etc., etc. But I guess those are things that are being looked at and that are being sort of worked out. But I think some of the statistics that I have given you would have provided some indication. Maybe the other aspect, another aspect that I could mention is what is known as the Swedish model or the Nordic model of the economy. And that is basically a capitalist system, but a provision of universalist social security benefits. So here in this society, although the per capita, as I said, is 47,000 per annum, but education is free, healthcare is free, and I'm sure those who have, I'm sure all of you have been to the United States, and all of you have some relatives or children, and you can understand how expensive healthcare is in that country, how expensive higher education is in that country. Here it is completely free. And so also in terms of the infrastructure and so on and so forth. So this is provides a good basis for this society. Maybe the last point that I could mention in this, the defining features that I'm presenting for you, is the lack of corruption in this society. This is a society which I think maintains very high standards for individual behavior, maintains very high standards for its political leaders, for its business leaders, and they pride themselves on this. So even in the reckoning of the Transparency International, you will find Sweden every year coming to the first 2 or 3 positions. So I thought I will leave, as far as some of the aspects of the Swedish society are concerned, which might help you to understand this country and its people better. But of course, when I say all these things, it doesn't mean that this country doesn't have problems. This country does have problems, and some of them very serious ones. They are in danger of losing their top position as far as innovation is concerned. They are in danger of losing their position in the higher education system. People are not very happy with the manner in which the education system is being worked out, how it has transformed over these years. I speak to many professors, I speak to many teachers, whether it is in schools or it is in universities, and they say that the Swedish students in higher education, higher learning, have a rather laid-back attitude. You will find people from India, from China, from Poland, from Slovakia, from Russia, are very keen, very intense, very motivated, very enthusiastic. But the Swedish students are, like they have seen good times. And so they have been born and brought up with that, and they think that those good times are going to continue without putting in the requisite effort. There is a problem with the infrastructure. If you look at the train systems, they were very good for the times that they were made, but right now they are losing that edge. Now maybe just a couple of minutes on India-Sweden relations. First, as far as the economy is concerned, the Swedish economy, they suffered quite adversely as a result of the international economic crisis of 2008. In 2009, their GDP came down by about 5.8%. So they were quite severely hit. But that notwithstanding, they have been able to pull up their socks. They have been able to put their economy in order. And they have, actually their finance minister, Anders Borg, has been voted as the best finance minister of Europe for the last 2 years. Last 2 years, it saw its economy grow by about 5% in 2010 and about 4.8% in 2011. So it has been one of the more dynamic and more robust economies of Europe, not only of Europe, of the whole world actually, over the last few years. So economically, it has been doing well. As far as India is concerned, the relationship, both countries are democracies, the relations are warm, they are very vibrant, they are dynamic. And I think over the last few years, the profile of India has grown as not only as a very strong economy, but also as a very important international political player, as a factor of peace and stability, as a factor of growth and prosperity, not only for itself, not only for the region, but internationally as such. And I think that has made this country look more seriously towards India. So whether we were to look at the manner in which the political contacts have been growing, I think it's at a very impressive scale. We had the visit of the Speaker of Lok Sabha here last year, visit of the Minister of Power, visit of Minister of ICT and HRD, Kapil Sibal, Mr. Sushil Kumar Shinde, etc. From this side, we had the visits of Foreign Minister, we had the visit of Health Minister, and several other levels. In the area of bilateral economy, because economy has appeared, has surfaced as the most important segment, this is the, so to say, the meat on the on the bones, which is a strong relationship, but you need some substance to it, and the bilateral economic exchanges have provided that substance. And I could mention a large number of figures or data or information. Just a couple of them would suffice to get home the point that things are moving rapidly and in a very positive manner. That we had one of these Swedish companies won its largest ever contract in another foreign country, that is ABB, for about $900 million plus. Early this year, the contract was signed. We had the investments over the last 1 year from India to Sweden have been more than investments that have taken place over the last 10-15 years put together. So at the moment, if we see for the last 2 years, the investment by Swedish companies in India were 1.1 billion kroners. This year it is expected to be about 3.5 billion kronor, so more than 3 times. There are about 170 Swedish companies in India. Every month we have more than 2 Swedish companies getting established. So things are growing. Economically it is growing, politically it is growing, and I think the perception and the image of India in this country is getting better. And I think the visit of your delegation, Marshal Roy, and all these wonderful people here, I'm sure is going to provide another strong fillip and a strong impetus to this better understanding, this better cooperation. So let me finish here because it is now about 6:40, and I think we do have about 10-15 minutes for any comments or any questions. So I know you had a very busy day. And I address myself particularly to the ladies, but I can see that none of you have been dozing or finding it uninteresting. I've seen that all of you are very, very focused on what has been happening. Yes, please.
So you mentioned that this country has changed itself in the last 100 years. It was impoverished. How did this come about? Quickly, if you could just tell us what was the reason? How did they manage to turn around?
I think it is, I could give very many reasons for that, but I think the focus on education and focus on entrepreneurship and focus on enterprise. Because if you were to look at it from 1922 onwards, after the First World War, much of the time it has been the Social Democratic Party that has been at the helm of affairs. And they are the ones who made the education universal, made sure that the women are coming out and working. Meaning all these policies that I have outlined, that I have defined, the Swedish model, the Nordic model, etc., etc., all these policies are really those which started in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And they are the ones that gave strength to this economy. And of course now in Sweden there is a government which is right of the center. It's the alliance is right of the center. So this goes against a rightist form, it goes against the grain. They would like the government to move out, like whether it's in the United States, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans. So one side is left of the center and present. So they would like to reduce the benefits and the facilities, but the people will not agree to it. So there are issues of finance, there are issues of budget, balancing the budget. So this has been cut to an extent, but it cannot be removed in any significant manner because the people will not accept it. The people are used to it, they are used to free healthcare, they are used to free higher education, and they will not accept any curtailment of those benefits.
You spoke a lot about the security issues related to European Union and Baltics, but they did not touch upon their views on the emerging security situation in our part of the world, especially extremist terrorism, religious-based terrorism, which we see in Pakistan in particular. What is their take on this? Do they have stated position on this, or they?
You see, as far as terrorism is concerned, they themselves are also very conscious of that is a menace, that is a scourge that does not limit itself between any borders. So they have been, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is Afghanistan, they have been very conscious and they have been focused on it. They themselves have also suffered, of course they consider themselves to be immune to all such sort of attacks. But in December 2010, 15 December 2010, very close by here, there was a bomb explosion where, there was a person who blew himself up. But luckily, it was an, it happened by accident, so that, he could not reach the place where he intended to be, where there would be larger number of people. So the only damage, destruction and death was that he died without causing any damage to anyone else. But that has really made them aware that they are not immune. Terrorism can. And of course, what has happened in Norway recently, that has also brought home the point to them that, as far as terrorism is concerned, that is why they have sent, they have about 500 troops in Afghanistan. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, they want to engage it, and they want to encourage it to act against the terrorist groups that are operating there. So their position is quite strong as far as terrorist actions are concerned, as far as growth of terrorism in the world is concerned, particularly also in our part. But it is a nuanced position, if I may put it that way. It is a nuanced position because one, you have a principal position, and then you have your own interests in the region and in that particular country concerned. So in that sense, it is a nuanced position.
Your Excellency, how culturally are the two countries active or exchanging themselves, or what level are we? Right? Because culturally, India is a country which is accepted very well in the other country. How much is this today?
I think we need to engage more with Sweden, and over the last few years again we have been doing that. Number of cultural activities and programs take place, Indian programs. The embassy has been working towards it. There are a large number of independent groups here also which organize whether it is dance programs or music programs or other things. For instance, yesterday we were in a place about 100 kilometers from here, Westeros, where there was a very good symphony orchestra playing in tandem, sort of a jugalbandi with sitar. So there are these experiments also taking place, there are these. So the interest is growing. But of course the interest is not as much as you would see in many of the other countries. For instance, people who have been to Russia, or even in the Soviet times, people who have been to Middle East, or UK, or even Western Europe. I think this country is perched, on the northern end of Europe. As it is, the people, if you were to look at the people, they maintain a very private space around themselves. So in that sense, they are a little aloof, and one needs to reach out to them, and they are also opening up to the world. So this is something, and that is what, when I said that your visit here will provide an impetus, because this is an area which we need to continue to focus on. And I tell the Swedish people here that they also need to work in India to make themselves better known in India. And I think that also is being done, and that also is happening. But I think this bridging the sort of information gap, or bridging the information divide, that is that we really need to do, and we need to continue to work on that.
So democracy has strong roots in Sweden, and whatever briefing we heard from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they would like to promote closer ties with democratic countries and promote democracy as well. They talked about Myanmar and all. And on the other hand, they also told us that they are having very close relationships with China. So I think my personal view is that they follow a very pragmatic foreign policy. What is your view on that?
Absolutely. I think, after all, what is foreign policy? Meaning you have to protect and promote and project your national interest. And particularly when you have, there's the economic crisis, and many of their companies, for instance, Volvo was going bankrupt, and it has been taken over by Geely of China, and now it is doing extremely well because the Chinese market has opened up to it. Saab Motors has declared bankruptcy, and one of the Chinese companies is in the forefront of acquiring it. So, economics is a very strong factor, and they have about 500 Swedish companies in China, and whether you name Ericsson or you name Atlas Copco or you name any of these companies, they have their largest offices, they have the largest manufacturing units, all of them are in China. So while, when Wen Jiabao was here recently, they said we did discuss about human rights and other similar issues. They might be, but I think it is also that economics and trade and investment does occupy a very, very important position. It might be, that since the technology is there, they might not wish to share the technology which Saab has, because General Motors has a lien on it, so they did not permit it to go. But still, it might be hived off, and some of the portions might go to China. But it is a very pragmatic policy, and I think one can't or shouldn't blame or find fault with any country, because I think the principles are there, but also there is, and you have to seek a balance between the two, and this is what the country seeks to do.
So like you said, that it's a very corruption-free society. I'm sure it must be the same 25 years back. Yet when it came to acquiring or selling equipment, so kickbacks were paid, what has been the reaction? Have they learned, or is it the same when they are selling? After all, they are a very large defense equipment selling country. So would it be the same rules will apply, because it's a very highly competitive arms industry? What has been the reaction to such a scandal in Sweden itself? And what is the approach now?
You see, I think at the government level, at the official level, the approach is very, very clear that, they should not engage or indulge in any of such activities. And if it has been done, it has been done at a private level. And at private level, you see, even if by and large, out of 100, 95, 97, 98%, but one or two things can go wrong. And with that, you sort of, do not mar or tar either a reputation or an image. So I think by and large, and they pride themselves on that by and large they are sort of, above board. They don't deal have any underhand dealings, whether it is defense or it is, any other large equipment supplies. So I think by and large it is, and they have also a very independent press and a robust, vigilant parliamentary system. After all, what we have been talking about in India about the Lokpal, Ombudsman came here in the 1890s, and Ombudsman has increased in its power and in its scope of overseeing government transactions. But again, it is basically government transactions. Even any ombudsman for that matter, it will not really go into private contractual obligations or dealings. And that, I think, what you refer to, what you have in mind is, are of the nature of private contracts that were signed and that were executed.
So when a nation state starts doing well economically, has no major issues with its neighbors, regional aspirations of becoming a regional power come to the fore. Whereas, Sweden is an apt example of a nation state in being, of achieving that. It can. But it doesn't seem to even, something like it's behind the scene. It's there, everybody knows it's there, but it's not raising its hand. It's not that they are inward looking, it's not that they are shy. What could it be that, in fact, how many of us would know the name of the leader? Unlike the other European powers, you have them in the news every now and then. What is your view on this?
You see, let me put it this way, that Sweden was a huge empire, was a big empire. till about 200, 300 years ago, 17th, 18th century, it was a big empire, maybe that St. Petersburg was a part of this, and whether it was the Baltic states, down to Kiev, down to Ukraine, down to Istanbul even, that was all a part of the Swedish Empire, and it was a mighty empire. But after that, they have lost much of their territory, they have lost much of their strength. They lost Finland in 1810 as a result of the treaty with Russia. They lost Norway in 1905, and that was a peaceful sort of parting of ways. So they are a much reduced country, they are a much reduced power. And I think over the last 100 years, what they have learned, what they have been taught, and I didn't go into that particular aspect, is that they want to maintain a low profile, and they want to maintain a very frugal type of, these are people who are up in the north and very harsh climatic conditions, very severe climatic conditions. So they maintain very, very basic way of living. So in that sense, they are not very ostentatious, and they are not very flamboyant in their in the manner in which they conduct themselves. And they understand, they realize their limitations. One of the other very important defining features of their mindset and of their character is what is called Jantelagen. It is in Swedish, Jantelagen. And that means that no one should try to show off. Everyone should try to maintain and retain the very average level and the average standards. So this is something that is a part of their psyche. I think we do have some, maybe our guests, there is 7 o'clock. Yes, please. Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We need to thank the ambassador on many, many counts. First is to accept our visit. The first country which sent an email back straight away was him, and his love and attachment to NDC. He already told us how he's been accepting NDC in various countries wherever he's been ambassador. And that also showed in the program that was made for us. His personal involvement in the program you could make out by various people you met, very, very high officials. I don't think any of the groups when we go back would be saying that they have met the defense committee, the parliamentary committee on defense.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar and Mrs. Madhu Sajjanar, I extend a very warm welcome to Air Marshal and Mrs. P.K. Roy, Commandant NDC, Major General Anurag Gupta, Senior Directing Staff NDC, the delegates, other delegates of NDC and their spouses, as well as to the other distinguished guests who are present here this evening. May I now request the Ambassador to say a few words.
Thank you, Rajiv. Air Marshal P.K. Roy, Mrs. Roy, Major General Anurag Gupta, Senior Directing Staff, members of the delegation from National Defense College, dear friends, colleagues. Let me say what a great pleasure it is for me, my wife, and all of us at the embassy to extend a very warm and a very cordial welcome to each and every one of you, particularly to Air Marshal Roy and the visiting NDC delegation. It's a matter of great happiness, it's a matter of great privilege. This place is known as the India House, but rarely has it seen so many wonderful, young, accomplished, talented,
More.
articulate, beautiful, charming.
Cheers.
And rarely has it seen such smart, handsome, motivated, ambitious, hardworking, focused, dedicated, committed young men. Thank you for creating a mini India here. And I think this youth and vigor and vitality and dynamism is what distinguishes India of today. India which is proud of its ancient heritage, India which is confident of its bright future. Thank you very much for being here with us. India is proud of you and we are proud of you. So we are delighted. And of course I would like to extend a very warm and a very cordial welcome to our distinguished participants in the NDC course from our friendly countries, 2 officers from Nigeria, 1 officer from Vietnam and 1 officer from Uganda. We are delighted that you are here, and of course we are delighted that some of our friends from Sweden have, from Stockholm, have decided. I should say Sweden because we have one friend who has traveled all the way from Luleå. Yes, Luleå is more than 1,000 kilometers from here, and he has traveled specially to be with this delegation. So it's a great pleasure, and both my wife and I are delighted that we have you with us. I think people here who are not familiar with the National Defence College, it might be of interest for you to know that this very prestigious and premier institution was established in 1960, about 42 years ago. And it is the highest seat of strategic training for Indian senior defense service officers and civil service officers. And every year, this 47-week course is conducted. This is, I think, the 52nd course. 52nd course that is being conducted. And the NDC provides the strategic vision and leadership to the Government of India on both national and international security matters. It also serves as a very vital and a very vibrant think tank to provide guidance and to provide inputs to the government in formulating its security and defense policies. This team, the team from the National Defence College, it visits different countries, and of course we are privileged. I am not sure whether an NDC team has earlier visited Sweden or not, just once. But I think the fact that the NDC team is visiting Sweden is symbolic. It is an indication of the very strong relations, the growing relations, the growing economic, strategic, political and security partnership between our 2 countries. Marshal Roy, you have been here, your delegation has been here for the last 2 days. I know that you have met and interacted with the Ministry of Defense, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You have visited the Parliament, you have visited SITRI, you have been to the Armed Forces headquarters, and you have done a little bit of sightseeing in visiting the Vasa Museum also. And tomorrow you go to Karlskoga and you will stay at this wonderful spa resort, Lokabrunn, and I'm sure you and all the ladies, I'm confident will enjoy it very much. You come back and you visit the Swedish National Defence College here. You visit the Swedish International Institute of Swedish Institute of International Affairs, and you have an interesting program of visiting I think the Royal Palace and the City Hall and doing a little bit of enjoying the beauty of the Stockholm archipelago. So I think you will go back. I'm sure you appreciate the very minute detail into which the way your program has been constructed and it has been created. You will go back, I'm sure, extremely well informed. I must congratulate and compliment the team with whom, the NDC team with whom we interacted earlier today. And I was very impressed with the very pertinent, the very relevant and very direct questions that were, and I think it has forced me also to think, and I'm sure it has forced my colleagues in the embassy also to think. And I guess that is the intention of an interaction like this. We have benefited a great deal from your visit. I'm sure you will go back as strong bridges of spanning these two countries and as strong bridges of collaboration and partnership between our two countries. So a very warm welcome once again. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to staying in contact and wish you good health, happiness, everything. Thank you.
Master Sajana, Mrs. Sajana, distinguished guest from various departments of Sweden government, friends settled in Sweden, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a privilege for the NDC and the entire delegation to visit such a beautiful country. And the credit for this, I must give it to various people, but the first and foremost is our ambassador here. When I rang him up, that we would like to come to Sweden as a part of our study tour, he straightway accepted, and in fact he told me how close attachment of liking he has for the NDC, where he's had the opportunity to host NDC in various other countries where he's been an ambassador. The meticulous planning, each visits that we have gone through till now couldn't have been done without his personal involvement and the involvement of the embassy staff, and of course without the involvement of the officials of the Swedish government, various agencies that are involved. The purpose of visit has already been highlighted by him. As I said in various meetings of ours, basically we are just completed our international security environment study, in which you study the entire security environment of the world, and now you go out and see practically. And we visit two countries, one developing, one developed country. This group has visited Morocco, and now we are in Sweden. And I can assure you, we are going back with a lot of lessons learned for ourselves from both the countries. But from Sweden, we have tremendous lessons learned, and which came out during the question and answer sessions with many of you who are here. The discussions at CIPRI was one of the best discussions that we had at FOI, the Research Institute. And it's not only our own study, these visits by officers of this higher level, as the ambassador said, does help us in enhancing understanding of the two countries as well as further cooperation between the two countries. Normally, whenever I visit a country, I ask my secretary, NDC secretary, to give me the names of officers from that country who've done NDC in India. Unfortunately, it was none. I think we could take a step forward by having an officer from Sweden coming and doing a course in India. And what a better way than to for an officer to do the course, NDC course in India, and get posted as defense attaché. It will be one of the best things that can happen, and that officer will be really could give you fruitful support in your embassy there. So looking forward to an officer from Sweden doing course in our NDC in India. I must thank each and every branch of the government, armed forces, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the parliamentary group which met us today in interacting with us and bearing with the tough questions that our officers asked you. I have never seen any discussion, such free and frank and open discussion that took place over the last 2 days. Thank you very much for bearing with us and being frank and telling us what you felt about it. Last but not the least, NDC will always remind your house in India. I am told you will be, as in service we say, hanging uniform in another 2 to 3 months. We are there in India for you anytime. And thank you very much for looking after us. Thank you very much for the excellent briefing that you gave us in the evening today. Thank you very much for the program, beautiful program. I can assure you when we go back and tell the course, we generally go back and present the entire visit to the other courses. This would be the best planned, and I'm sure this wouldn't have happened without the support of our friend here, who has been interacting with every course member in India on a daily basis, and we've been pressurizing him quite a bit.
And I've been pressurizing the ambassador.
We've been pressurizing him tremendous. Excellent program. Thank you very much. And he's also coming back to India, so for you, again, same thing.
Thanks, sir.
NDC is there to look after you. And maybe you'll come for a course there. Thank you very much once again, sir. On behalf of NDC, may I request you to kindly accept the moment of honors.
Services, right? Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is the publishable books. I like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of all the spouses, this is thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Marshal Boy. May I request that we raise a toast? That we raise a toast not only for the good health, happiness, well-being of the leader of the delegation, of Mrs. Roy, of the senior directing staff, and each and every member of the NDC delegation and their spouses. But I think there is also another very significant and very important occasion, which is that Air Marshal Roy celebrates his 58th birthday 2 days from now. So we take this opportunity to wish him a very happy birthday and good luck and good health the whole year around. Thank you very much. And as we say in Sweden, skål.
You must learn from him. I don't know.
If you think the course is ignorant, you're wrong.
So the dinner is served.